Welcome back to the Friday Night 360 AZ Preview Show. I'm Jordan Ham alongside Haley Stasiak. We are now joined by Dave Zorn, KAFF Radio News and Sports Director. Dave, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
So Coconino has started the year 2-0, wins over Thunderbird and Carl Hayden. They won 2 games all of last year. What has really helped them push and get off to a good start this year?
Well, I tell you, we had the Thunderbird game on our station, the first game of the year, and we were impressed of how the young players have kind of assimilated their roles to the varsity level. We've known for a couple of years now that both Coconino and Flag High have had good freshman and JV teams, really good actually. And so those kids are starting to get into the varsity program and starting to make a difference. The difference in the Coconino Thunderbird game was the Panthers got 3 turnovers from Thunderbird and turned them into touchdowns. And that ends up being the deciding factor of the game. And it's been, like I said, the young players tied for a quarterback. There's a kid who's getting a lot of looks. NAU's been has their eye on him. He went to ASU's camp. A kid that's kind of getting himself known. He's been a great leader for this team. And then sophomore tailback Zach Bennett had a great game against Thunderbird, and he's kind of a smaller, shiftier kind of player, but he has a lot of good cutback ability, and it's a kid that we can't wait to see the next this year and, of course, 2 more years after that.
Bradshaw Mountain and Mingus are both 3-0 to start this season. What is it that we should be keeping an eye on with these 2 teams?
Well, they're both good. I mean, I think right now we do a region poll amongst the media members up here in Flagstaff and Prescott and around the region, and we've had Mingus and Bradshaw 1 and 2 since our preseason poll came out, and they're living up to the billing. Mingus has got a great running back, and Alex Nelson averaging about 48 yards a game in 3 games for them. Anthony Mata, another running back at Bradshaw Mountain, doing really, really well there. They just got really good offenses. They're really good teams, and they're well coached. On top of that, that's a big reason why they're on the top of the region. And there's kind of a long jam after them with Flag, Coconino, and Prescott. The next step down. I think the region itself has gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. But right now, Mingus and Bradshaw are the elite 2, and they've had some good wins early on too.
You mentioned Zach Bennett. I know that you're excited about another sophomore running back at Flagstaff as well. Just what does it say about kind of the youth movement that's been happening with the youth programs in the Flagstaff area?
Yeah, Luis Jaramillo had a great game against Dysart last week, 163 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. And he's kind of a bowling ball type running back, about around 200 pounds, and just blows through people. And, you know, it's been a work in progress getting the youth program back on track here in town. There's a couple different leagues here in Flagstaff, and it's been, a lot better managed over the last couple of years. And that's keeping kids interested in high school, in football, and then when they get in the high school level, they're continuing that success at the youth leagues and carrying it through freshman and JV. And now we're starting to see that impact on the varsity levels. Now, it means that Flag and Coconino are going to win a state championship in 4A? No, as long as you get Saguaro and Desert Edge and those guys sitting there, that's kind of a lofty goal, I guess you could say. But both programs have said over and over again their goal is a region title. I think that's where it starts. Is the more winning you do at these programs, the better it's going to be year in and year out. I think that youth programs here in Flagstaff have done a great job cultivating that talent to where when they get to the varsity level, it's really starting to pay dividends for both Flag and Coconino.
We're a couple weeks into the season now. What's the most intriguing thing or the most intriguing storyline that you're following with the northern part of the state?
Well, obviously the resurgence of Coconino is probably the biggest thing for us. And like you mentioned, Jordan, I mean, 2 wins all of last year, and they've already got that now. And they play Cortez this week. That should be a win number 3 before the big game with Mingus up here in 2 weeks. That's a big deal. I think you're starting to see a couple different players. The running back, I can't remember his name, but running back from Alchese is getting a lot of press over in the White Mountains. I think that kid and that program, that's a great story there on the White Mountain Apache track. Then there's Keely Meredith, who's a running back at Page, who's having a great year. We saw him last year. He was a phenomenal running back for Page. And I think you're starting to see a lot of these little tiny schools producing big-time stories and a lot of good warm feeling stories, I think, in the northern Arizona territory, whether it be here in Flagstaff or even, of course, the White Mountains always has their share of stories over there. And I think you're starting to see these schools you don't traditionally hear from starting to produce a couple different players where you're starting to hear more about them. For me, that's been the best thing that's happened so far this year. You're starting to hear about these other schools and other players in some of these other schools.
Thanks so much, Dave. We appreciate the time.
No problem. Anytime.
All right, that was Dave Zorn, KAFF Radio News and Sports Director. A lot of interesting stuff. Seems like Flagstaff football specifically, that city, that community is on the rise.
Yeah, I mean, what he mentioned about Coconino being the most intriguing storyline, as you pointed out, that 2-0 start, 2 wins all last season, to come out and start like that, got to be good for the program, for that momentum. Lots can happen in this season. You never know what's going to happen, but I thought that was interesting. And just the youth football, how that effect has been felt in with the high school and the varsity level too.
Yeah, and it's for a guy like Dave, he tracks these sort of things of just kind of the not a trickle down effect, but more of a trickle up, where it's you can kind of see these kids at 12, 13, 14, and then all of a sudden, okay, they have a couple pretty stacked freshmen and JV teams. Now you're starting to see those athletes at the varsity level. A lot of times with these numbers up in the North Valley, they'll go ahead and make sure to have those guys on the varsity level as sophomores. So you're starting to see some of those young guys really come through.
Well, and what's interesting is talking about how that youth football has kind of expanded up in Flagstaff. There's talk around here too about schools taking away the football programs. So it's interesting to see how things are different in different parts of the state too.
Yeah, absolutely. So really good stuff from Dave as always. Coming up next, we have Lamar Early, the Millennium head coach. They're off to a good start as well, 2-0. They have a big game this week against Desert Edge. We're going to talk to him about all of those things coming up on the Friday Night 360 AZ preview show.